Welcome back to another episode of Let's Stay In.
I'm Anna, and this is Mark.
Now, before we get into today's episode, we got to give you that annoying reminder. Make sure you like, subscribe, download, comment. If there's a button, make sure you click it. Somehow, I think that helps us out.
With that being said, let's just jump right in.
Makenna, how we doing? Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we're excited for this. This is the first person that's also coming from something. Is it the first person from San Diego outside of Anna?
I want to say yes.
Yeah.
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 Awesome.
So,
I'm honored.
I need San Diego friends, so that makes me excited.
I'm so excited.
So I hope we connect today.
Absolutely. I mean,
we never know.
I hope a friendship blooms. Yeah. Not to make this awkward.
Like, what if I fucking hate you after this?
Yeah, it could be really awkward.
That would be tough.
We found out that we're both only children when you were upstairs.
Oh, nice.
Doing whatever.
Yeah. Do you guys bond over that?
I think that's like relatively normal. Only children are pretty rare. So
at least like ones that are sociable.
You guys get more presents at Christmas. You guys get all of your family's inheritance. That part's nice. I've thought about that.
So dark, Mark. It's not all we care about. We also get all of our parents' love and affection.
That too.
Yes. All their support.
Yeah, This is true.
All the pressure.
Yeah, all the
pressure.
Sometimes we are weird.
Okay.
That is true.
I definitely have my quirks, I think, that I get from being an only child.
How long did you play with Barbies?
I wasn't allowed to have Barbies.
Ooh.
My mom.
Whoa, trauma.
My mom was convinced it was going to give me an eating disorder. And so she didn't let me have Barbies.
Wait, we got to dive into that in a second.
That is so interesting.
Wait, I'm gonna stop you because I know we want to dive into that because that's interesting. But before we do that, because
that bait.
Otherwise we'll dive into a 20-minute conversation from here. So Makenna, real quick, 30-second elevator pitch. Let's say you're a big Pilates person. You're at Pilates. Someone walks up to you. They're like, "Who are you? What's your story?" Give us a 30-second elevator pitch.
Oh God, I knew you were going to ask me this, and I was thinking about it, but honestly, am I like pitching myself, like telling you how great I am, or am I
just giving you
a synopsis of
I had the same question. I was like, you want me to pitch you, like sell me as a product to you, or do you want me just to tell you about me?
No, give like your full name, where you're from, what do you do, like all that kind of stuff. What's your astrological sign, the whole nine.
Yeah, what's your spiel?
What's your favorite hobby? I don't know.
Everything about me.
Get crazy.
Well, my name's Makenna Mugnani. I'm 25. I grew up in Northern California, and I now live in San Diego. And I own a construction management company. And I am a dog mom, which I love. Not that that's my whole personality trait, but sometimes it is. And I'm just figuring life out one day at a time, if I'm being honest.
That's what we're all doing.
My best.
We actually had you on the podcast to tell us what life is like and help us figure it out. So
I can do my best, but
yeah. You know, when I first talked to Makenna on the phone about coming on the podcast, I just hear in the background like panting, and she's like, "Just so you know, I have a dog, and it's just panting in the background."
Not my boyfriend.
She's like, "No, I don't have AC in the apartment, so it's real hot in here, and he's just panting. I'm panting. It's hot."
No. We just gotten back from a walk. He's like
just out of it.
Loud.
Yeah, it was kind of funny. I was like, "Oh, I just hear in the background. I'm not going to make the noise because this is a video podcast. It would be tragic to do that
slobbering.
to myself. Yeah, I'm not going to do that, but just her panting in the background. But anyway, okay, so we got to dive back into it. The Barbie. What was the rationale?
My mom thought it was going to give me an eating disorder. So because their bodies are so unproportional and unrealistic.
Okay,
she was convinced Barbies were going to wreck my...
Well, was she...
No.
Well, that's where my brain... I'm like, well, did it work?
No. I still had
You're still
those issues in college. Like,
fair.
Yeah.
Fair.
We were born in the 90s. Like, were you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Wait, were you?
We have to double check.
I know. I have to make sure with our guests sometimes.
No, but so, I mean, technically, though, wasn't essentially that's kind of what the Barbie movie was about, no? Kind of.
I didn't even watch the Barbie movie.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, you might be the first woman that I've ever met that hasn't watched it.
The effects of Barbie happen regardless. Like that movie came, it's great, but it came too late. Like the effects are already done.
Yeah.
Like it already affected all of us.
I was like allowed to play with Polly Pockets though, which I feel like are the same thing.
She's like, they're just so unachievable. Like there's no way you could be that.
Yeah.
So
I'm going to be honest. I don't even know what a Polly Pocket looks like. No?
It's a mini Barbie basically.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
What about
They're
Bratz
just like
dolls?
really small. Wasn't allowed to have those.
I wasn't allowed to have Bratz
My mom
dolls.
thought that they were slutty, I think.
Like, that's a lot of moms. Yeah. Like a lot of moms. They're edgy. Definitely edgy.
Isn't it crazy to think about when we were born, like what was considered like quote unquote slutty compared to nowadays in 2024?
The internet
We're
has
desensitized.
Yeah, it's like you can go on Twitter and watch two people have sex just scrolling the feed. Like it just happens. And like compared to where we grew, like what we grew up, it was like if you could see the bra outline underneath your shirt, that was considered like insane.
The bra straps.
Yeah.
Spaghetti straps.
Spaghetti straps were, I mean, you were risky business.
Yeah. You're a sex worker. Spaghetti straps.
Yeah,
Straight home from school.
That's nuts. I mean, it really is crazy to think about how far we've come with like society on that.
Did you guys have the whole like finger roll where like you had to put your hands and then the finger had to be to the bottom of the finger, the skirt? I mean,
well, you're looking at me like I wore a skirt.
when you wear your mini skirts, Mark.
I did hear about that rule. Yeah.
Ridiculous.
Yeah. I don't even know how we dive into this, but like we were chatting the other day, we were talking about like topics we wanted to get into, whatever. And one of the topics that you brought up was mental health. And so I feel like complete side note from Polly Pockets and from Barbies and everything like that, but we got to dive into that.
Yeah.
I mean, actually, technically, you did say, technically it didn't work, right? So the Barbie theory didn't work. So walk us through, I guess, like what is your, I don't even know how to word this. What is your mental health
Walk
journey?
us through your mental health journey.
Tell us all your traumas. Oh my God, I haven't even ever thought of it.
Start
in the
with day one
context
trauma
of my mental health journey.
What started your search for it? What started your interest in it? Was there like a pivotal moment, or was it just like a long time coming?
I think it was a buildup. I had a fair amount of, I feel like the word trauma is so overused, but trauma throughout my childhood and such. And I did fine with it until I was out of it and I like in college. And then once you're out of it, I think you snap a little bit out of survival mode and everything hits you like a ton of bricks. But in college, you're still going at a million miles an hour. I was in a sorority. I was working. I was in a full course load. I ended up being the president of my sorority for a bit. So that just added to like all the distraction and things that kind of just keep the momentum going, keep you moving forward. But definitely was on a downhill track. I feel like mentally, it wasn't catching up to me yet. And COVID happened, which I feel like was kind of a pivotal time for a lot of people in terms of mental health. I think everybody, if you were kind of on the brink, either like it was good for you and you got your space to deal with it, or it pushed you over the edge. And I think for me, it started to push me over the edge. And let's see. It was just like the first time I went back to therapy for the first time since like I was in elementary school, and didn't really do much. But where it really took a turn for me was probably a couple, 2.5 years ago or so. I was working in sales and I don't think that was a great fit for me work-wise, and everything just like shit hit the fan for me. And I was having panic attacks every day, and I was like super depressed and super anxious all the time about everything. And it got to the point where I just literally was like, I have to do something about this. I have to make a change. I can't live like this. It went on for probably a year before I went back to therapy, but that only does so much. And I didn't want to be consistently on medication. I think that's a great option for people who really need it, but I had done that at one point and it just wasn't for me. So then I ended up doing ketamine therapy. I'd like heard about it before, and it always seemed like way too much, too intense, too scary. I'm not like a big drug person, so it was never something that felt comfortable to me until I got desperate enough and I had listened to someone who had a really incredible experience with it and did it. Obviously went through doctors and all that stuff and changed my life.
Wow.
Turned my mental health around.
Do you remember your first panic attack? Where you were, what caused it?
I don't think I realized that they were panic attacks. I think I have a pretty high threshold for emotional stress and pain, just because of the way that I grew up in certain situations. And it took me having many of them for me to realize that it wasn't just anxiety. I think the first time I really realized it was like a panic attack was I was at work and I was like so anxious, started getting hard to breathe. I took a walk, and I think that kind of clicked for me that it was more than just a little bit of anxiety.
Okay. Because I feel like that's like a really big like telltale sign of like when it happens. And I think a lot of people make the mistake when it comes to like anxiety and depression is to find the exact source of what may have caused that. Like if I'm only able to decode this, then I'll heal that part of me and then everything is great. But for the most part, it bleeds into every aspect of your life. And I know when I had my first panic attack, I was getting a massage, and your body holds on to so much trauma. And that was something I had no idea about. And I've been someone that gets a massage every single month. I've been lucky enough to do that for years because of my scoliosis and, you know, injuries and things like that. So I was at this like influencer event for Revolve, and they were giving away free massages. It was such a strange situation. And it was a guy. And at one point I just like opened my eyes and I was like, I think I'm having a stroke. And so mine manifested very much as like physical, like in my face and my heart. I felt like I was disassociated. I wasn't in my body. And I made the mistake, which if you have panic attacks or, you know, you're in a situation where you have one, listen to this advice. Do not leave your atmosphere that you are currently in. So the biggest mistake that you can make when you're having a panic attack is to leave the room. So that will start then almost like an agoraphobe pattern where if you don't run, if you don't, you know, flight, then you will then trigger more. And so like flying or being in confined spaces, if you can box breathe, like get through it in the moment. Do not do your best not to exit the premises. And that will like reduce your recovery time by a lot. And unfortunately, I didn't know this information. All I know is I'm at this influencer event with all of these Instagram famous chicks, and I think I'm having a stroke. So I run out the building and I'm like running down the street to my car, and it lasted for like 3 hours. Because I didn't know what was going on. And there's a huge difference between panic attacks and anxiety attacks. So anxiety attacks, I'm not going to go into like the definition of it, but panic attack generally is so frightening. You have no logic. So you can't go to yourself, oh, I'm feeling anxiety, or, oh, I'm feeling, you know, like my breathing is elevated. You go, I'm having a heart attack and I'm dying. That's why people go to the ER, because they think that they're, you know, something fatalistic is happening. But it's important to decipher when you feel like you're going crazy suddenly. It's most likely a panic attack. Just stay put and breathe. It will pass.
That's great advice. Most people don't understand how to handle those things because we're just not educated about it. People aren't educated about mental health or how to deal with mental challenges like that unless you're in it and you're like seeking help already.
And you often don't until it's like too late, you know, in some regard. And I feel like if you are someone that is a big avoider, which it sounds like you are, I am too. Where like it's the analogy of like, my therapist gave it to me, of the basketball being held under the water in the pool when you're a kid. And then all of a sudden just like buoyant just pops up and hits you in the face. And you're like, that was stupid. And that's what it is. It's just like you trying to hold down and suppress and suppress and suppress. And the minute you aren't able to distract yourself, it all just comes shooting up and you can't ignore it anymore.
Yeah, it's tough.
What was your like final straw, I guess, to like go? You said you kind of had like, you had enough, where you were like, okay, I'm tired of this. Like I need to do something to fix this. Do you remember the moment that was kind of like your final straw with, you know, kind of the, I guess like not, I don't know the right way to word this. I guess like what was your final straw before you realized you needed to get more help with it?
I think I just felt like I was wasting my life away. Like I would call my dad every single day, like bawling my eyes out, because I had nowhere to put like the emotion and the pain and the fear that I was feeling. And so I'd call him and I was just noticing the pattern in myself. I'm like, this is not sustainable. This is not healthy. I like am missing out on my life living like this. And I think I was flying home and I was listening to some podcast and someone was actually talking about accidentally, like some woman had fallen down the stairs accidentally, and when the ambulance came, they gave her ketamine on the way there medically, and I think they gave her too much by accident, but she said she had this experience and it changed her forever in the best way. She was struggling with postpartum depression, all this stuff, and then after just doing ketamine for something completely unrelated to mental health, she said her life was changed forever, which is not the way to do it, obviously, for most people. But listening to someone talk about it who wasn't even doing it with that purpose or that intent, having that positive of an experience kind of flipped a switch for me. I'm like, I just have to try it because
Will you walk us through like the whole process of signing up, going to the clinic? What did it look like? What did it feel like? Were you nervous?
I did it all online. It's called Mind Bloom, not to like plug, but if anybody was ever interested in doing it, it's all online. You do it in your own home. You speak to medical professionals multiple times leading up to it. They screen you for all kinds of different things like addiction or other mental health issues that might be exacerbated if you take it. And walk through it. I ended up doing it for the first time. I flew home to do it so that my dad could like be in the house. He wanted to kind of help facilitate it. And since it is kind of out there and a little bit different, you never know how you're going to react. And I was really excited because I just needed some kind of relief, and I did it. And basically they send you like little tabs of like pressed tabs of it that dissolve in your mouth, and you don't swallow them. You let it sit for 7 minutes, and then you like rinse your mouth out, spit it out, rinse it out, and then put a mask on. They have this music lined up for you for each separate session. You buy like 6 at a time, and then just kind of like lay back and relax. And some people have really like vivid visual kind of experiences. Obviously you're not like hallucinating around you because you have a mask on and you're kind of more internal.
What do you mean by the mask on? Like a COVID
like a
mask?
sleep mask. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like
okay.
over your
Covers
eyes.
Okay.
So that it's dark and you don't like wake up. You can go deeper into your mind, I guess, that way.
Less distractions.
Yeah. And I've never had a really visual or vivid experience. Some people say it's kind of like a dream. I feel like I just fall asleep and then I wake up 45 minutes later and I'm like a little drowsy sometimes, but I just wake up, kind of, have something light to eat, some water, and then go about my day. And over the next couple of days, like the science behind it is your brain is in a super neuroplastic state. And so it can help people with building better habits if you need that. But it also, I don't even know how to explain it, but it literally just, it feels like someone goes in and just like scrubs out your brain and like reconnects all the things that have been tangled and cleans it all up. And for the first time in years, it was like my mind was quiet when I just sat and I like wasn't spiraling and I wasn't.
Can't even imagine.
No, it was crazy.
Are you someone that deals with a lot of intrusive thoughts? Or before you did?
Yeah. Definitely.
Okay. That's so interesting.
Yeah, it's weird in the best way. It's really mind-blowing. And after my first probably 5 sessions or something, I went home for Thanksgiving and saw my best friend growing up. And she was like, you are a different person, but not myself. She's like, you are the Makenna that I met when we were in 3rd grade.
Just lighter and happier.
She's like, you're yourself again. You're not like weighed down by all that shit.
That's
so
sweet.
Yeah.
Do you notice changes within yourself, or I guess like what are the biggest changes? Like maybe a time where you're like, okay, previously I would have handled a situation like this, but after doing ketamine therapy, I started to react to it like this.
Yeah, I guess in social situations, I'm a lot less fearful now. Like I was constantly afraid of, like I still worry about what people think. Like I want to leave people feeling better when I leave than they felt when I came in. And I care to an extent about what people think. But I was so socially fearful of people in some ways. I don't even know how to describe it, but I think it just made me kind of lock up, and it was challenging. And I think now I can just be myself around people. I always assumed people would just automatically not like me, I think.
I see that. I feel that too.
Yeah.
Anna deals with that on a regular basis.
I was just like, ooh, gut punch. So I've always compared mentally ketamine to ayahuasca. I know it's probably not even remotely similar, but I feel like it's that sort of like transformative experience. But I know that ayahuasca is more like aggressive, I guess. Yeah. Depends on how much you take. So when you were doing the ketamine therapy, you didn't have any sort of visions or like lessons learned, like nothing came to you or an epiphany?
I didn't. It was, some people do. Some people have epiphanies, they have dreams, they like can visually kind of see. I think some people almost walk through whatever it's healing in some way. They have some like kind of like a dream or a vision. I never have had any of that. It's like, it's almost like to me, like my mind feels like it needs a break and it just needs to like go to a place that my conscious mind won't let me go. And it just goes to that place and it cleans it all up for me. And I get to reap the rewards, I guess, after.
That's so nice.
Yeah, it's really weird and it's hard to, I almost wish that I had more tangible visual experiences with it that I could share, because it's so hard for me to articulate how it works for me, because it seems so like out there, because I take it. I wake up and it's like, okay, your brain's a little bit better now.
Do you have to be really careful with what you ingest afterwards, like material wise, whether that be like movies or articles and things like that? Are you basically ingesting or ungesting, but like taking in material that's very specific to what your goals are?
I typically just try to avoid watching a lot of TV or going on social media the day, like for the rest of that day. I'll do it later in the day. Just because, one, I don't want to build, again, if your brain's more neuroplastic, you're going to create those new neural pathways. I don't want to create neural pathways that push me more towards my phone or more towards just like zoning out on TV or whatever. So I try to just walk a lot, talk to friends, cook, do something kind of wholesome and like relaxing and not electronic related. But I don't typically like try to take in something specific.
Okay.
But I think some people do. Some people really dive into that side of it.
And because I know class-wise it's a disassociative.
Yeah.
I believe. So afterwards, you don't feel out of body or anything?
I don't. I never have.
That's incredible.
Yeah, I feel a little bit drowsy. Sometimes my brain feels a little foggy, but for the most part, I feel very myself. I feel pretty centered, and I don't think I do enough of it. And since you're not swallowing it, it's not going through your
bloodstream.
Yeah, doesn't stick in me as much, because they tell you specifically do not swallow it, because you'll have effects for much longer after, and it'll be more intense.
I would think you'd want to go to a clinic for that, for like that dosage.
I think some people, you can go to clinics for it, and I think they do like IVs of it.
Oh, wow.
Which I've never obviously done that. I've always just done the one at home.
That's the only one I've ever heard of, is like going to actual clinics. And we have huge ones in LA.
I know nothing about it.
We're
literally
known for
nothing.
that.
I mean, I've heard of people doing K, right? Like, I mean, just like calling it that, maybe in like college or whatever. And then when people started talking about ketamine therapy for people with PTSD or like a number of depression issues, things like that, I was like, oh, that's like very interesting. But I guess like my question for you would be, when you first started, okay, you're having these panic attacks, you're having a lot of anxiety, things like that. Did you try other forms of therapy first? Or I guess like what brought you to the idea of ketamine therapy? Because I feel like I would assume most people kind of go, okay, well, I'm going to go to a therapist. Therapist is going to walk me through either doing like EMDR or doing some form of talk therapy, things like that. And then maybe they go to a point of doing ketamine therapy. I guess like what was your therapy journey like?
I have been in and out of therapy since I was like 5. When I was a really young kid, I weirdly had a lot of anxiety about being left places, like getting dropped off at school. Like I was convinced that no one was going to come pick me up.
Okay. Big abandonment moods.
Yeah. My parents are divorced. They've been divorced since I was 3, but that I never understood where I got that fear from, because they handled, of everything in my childhood, they handled their divorce really with a lot of grace in terms of how things were with me. But yeah, I was super convinced that someone was going to leave me. I also had this weird, this is going to make me sound like such a weirdo, but fear that I was going to get stuck at a red light, like driving in the car. When I was like 5, my parents would have to I would start to really get nervous that we were going to be stuck there forever.
Okay.
Which is so weird. So
do you have claustrophobia?
No.
So it's just the pausing.
I don't have any fears like that. It was super specific and super random.
Do you have OCD?
No.
I don't think that's, I don't find that like that strange.
No.
And the reason why I say that is because I feel like when you're a kid, like I had this weird, like we had these family friends in our neighborhood, and my parents joked to me when I was like 6, they're like, oh, you're going to marry their daughter. And until I was like probably 11, I was like, I guess I have to marry her. Like, I don't really know. I was just like, I guess that's I don't know. I just have to. And I was like, I don't really even know her. Like, I was like, but I'm like 11 thinking about this, right? And so I guess like the way that I think about it is when you're a kid, you think of everything in definite terms, right? And so when you were a kid and your parents are going through a divorce, there's probably that fear of like, maybe that fear of being left at the traffic stop or at the bus stop or whatever was because of, okay, you know, I'm used to coming home to both mom and dad. I'm with mom and dad constantly. Now all of a sudden my parents get divorced, and even though they handled it with grace, now all of a sudden I'm not with both of them at the same time. And so there's that fear of like, I'm not going to see everybody again. And so that maybe that manifests when you're at the bus stop, whatever. Then when you come to the red light, it's that fear of like, my life is now paused. Is my life going to go again? And I don't know, it could be this like deep, you know, thing maybe triggered from your parents going through a divorce at a young age. Cause it's like, I don't know. We're all a product of our exact experiences. So, you know, you're a product of what you went through and everything like that. And I think a lot of what we go through as a kid affects us subconsciously that we don't even realize why it's, you know, why that's happening.
Yeah. I was super afraid of being like doing anything wrong. Like I would never like work with someone on homework, or even in like the first grade, or I would like tell my teacher and be like, hey, I got help on this, or I worked with someone on that, which is ridiculous for a 6-year-old in first grade to do. So maybe part of it was like, if I get stuck at a red light, I'm not allowed to run the red light. Like, we're going to be stuck here. Like, not that I'm driving, but we can't break the rules. So we're stuck here forever if it never turns.
Okay. So I don't want to diagnose you because I'm in no position to, but you sound a lot like me, and I have OCD. So OCD is not what people think it is.
No, I went to school for psych.
Me.
So
okay. And it infuriates me. Like, it's a huge pet peeve of mine when people will be like, I'm so OCD. Like, my OCD is making me do this and cleaning. No, you're getting a reward from cleaning your desk and it makes you feel good. Yeah. OCD does not make you feel good. No. And for example, when you were saying the homework thing, that was one of my tell signs is I had to always confess. So like confession release is when, I'm sure you know that because of psych, is you automatically feel like everything has been wiped clean because you came clean about something that you decided is unethical. Yeah. And unless you tell, it's going to fester and grow and grow and grow. So for me, mine has always been telling the truth. Yeah. And like cheating, everything in my head could possibly be cheating. You know, if we weren't given homework, I should probably tell the teacher. Otherwise, it's like everything. Yeah. I made everything a lot bigger than it had to be. And unless I confess to my mom or, you know, the principal, anything like that, then it would eat me alive.
That is so, like, I've never even looked at it like that, but that is.
The stopping at the stop sign. It's like I have that in planes where all of a sudden I become really aware of the fact that I am like paused up in the air and then there's so much space below me and like immediately triggers a panic attack. And it's like, it's basically going deep into a thought and then spiraling about that thought,
obsessing
and then fixating on the sensation that you have when having that thought.
Yeah.
And it's often egodystonic. So it's the opposite of what you desire in that moment.
Right. Oh my God. Just made me learn something new about myself.
Say, you really
That's crazy.
You really might.
Makenna's got the mind blow like emoji above her head right now. Yeah,
I really do.
100%.
Yeah, it's like a lot of people don't realize it because unfortunately it's been, you know, it's been miscategorized where people think it has to do with germs, and you know, there's people that are incredibly brave that have spoken out about it. Like, what's his name?
You're talking about Howie Mandel?
Yeah, Howie Mandel. He's very open about that, and that's a beautiful thing. I think more celebrities are being really honest about that, which is wonderful. But there's a very stereotypical brand of it, which is germs and then cleanliness.
Yep.
And the most, you know, not detrimental. They're all horrible, but like harm. There's like there's different versions of it, of being scared of, you know, people driving and then hitting the middle of the whatever. It's like people, and then why did I think that? Like, why did I even have that thought, fixate on it? And then now they're scared of driving over bridges and they don't even realize that that's a form of a mental illness or a mental health problem.
Yeah. I've never even thought about it like that. That's actually really cool to.
And the onset is really sudden. And a lot of people don't know what's happening to them. They'll just have a thought, have a panic attack about that thought.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden a phobia is born from that.
Yeah.
And then it takes doing research of like keywords, which is what happened to me one Christmas. I had a really bad panic attack about something I actually saw on social media that was about a topic that I hadn't resolved in my life from previous traumas, had a thought about it, had a panic attack about it, thought I was going crazy. And it turns out, you know, I just, unfortunately, the chemicals in my brain were imbalanced and I have OCD.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Damn.
I wish
More people need to talk about it,
I was about
though.
to say that. I wish more people also understood it about themselves. I think a lot of people go through their lives so unhappy, so miserable, and fearful of anything because they just don't understand.
And they feel so
taboo.
abnormal. They feel so abnormal. And I think people are really scared of confessing like their innermost, you know, the things that scare them the most because they don't want to be labeled as, you know, needing help or being locked up or something like that. And so then it makes it so much bigger and more abnormal than it is, when in reality therapists have heard all of this 100 times a day, and it saves lives. So we need to talk about it.
Absolutely.
Well, and it's crazy too, because like at the end of the day, when people, I think people have a fear of not being normal, right? And it's like, but what is normal? And I think that's the thing that we have to change the idea around, because nobody is quote unquote normal. Everybody has quirks. Everybody has different things that they need to work on. Everybody has some odd tendencies at times. Everybody has different things they're battling. Like, so there is no sense of normal. So if you have something that is holding you back or stopping you from going to do X, Y, and Z, and there is something that can help you, whether it be therapy or whether it be, you know, some other form of, you know, whether it be some form of medication, whether it is something like trying out ketamine therapy or something along those lines, if there is something that you can do to potentially help something that's bothering you, then you should try it. But I think we have to get past the idea of being like, well, then I'm admitting that I'm not normal. It's like, again, nobody is.
Yeah.
So we all have things that we should be working on constantly, and none of us are a finished product. We all have our different traumas. Everybody has different experiences. You mentioned earlier in the beginning of the podcast that like, you're like, I hate to say trauma because like everybody kind of uses that word, but it's, again, trauma's a relative term, right?
Yeah,
Whatever is the worst
absolutely.
thing that you've gone through, the thing that's affected you the most is your trauma. Same with mine, same with Anna, right?
Absolutely.
And so at the end of the day, if there's something that we've gone through and we can't, and it affects us now to this day as a result, and like it manifests in different ways, whether it be, you know, some sort of anxiety or depression or X, Y, and Z, if there is something that you can do to potentially help that, you should. We just have to get past the idea of like, you know, almost admitting that you're not perfect. Like, none of us are perfect. Like, fuck it. If you could do something to help yourself, you should. You deserve that, you know?
Yeah.
So, but okay, you mentioned again, like so you started therapy at 5 years old, right? Which is, by the way, I don't know if I've ever heard that. You might be the most mentally healthy person at this point starting therapy.
No, I was going to say, I really like applaud your parents for taking action so early on.
Yeah, that was good. And it wasn't like intensive therapy. I think they just wanted to understand why I was so afraid of
Certain
the red
things.
lights.
Yeah.
And didn't last long, but went there. And then when I was in 5th grade, I was ordered by a court. I had to go to therapy because of things that were happening in my life. So
Things you can talk about or no?
I mean, yeah, I can talk about it. My mom's an alcoholic, and there was, I basically, it ended up having to come to a custody thing between my two parents. And because of some of the things that had happened that led to that, part of the agreement that the court came to was they were requiring me to go see like a child psychologist to make sure that I processed it and didn't get fucked up, I guess you could say. Mm-hmm. Not that anyone's fucked up from going through hard things. It's very normal, but I think they were just trying to
Get ahead of things
and protect me as best they could. And I was so resistant to it. I mean, I was young. I didn't fully understand, and I really didn't like my identity being tied to, you know, my mom's drinking, or it was such a big part of my life that I was so like people wanted me to go to Al-Anon. I don't know if you guys know what that is.
No, what is that?
It's like, you know what AA is?
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know if it's part of AA, but it's a program in place for children of alcoholics. And it's kind of, it's like a support group type thing. I never went. I was like, I'm not going to that because this is it's not my problem. It's not my addiction. It's not my story. It is part of my story, but I didn't want that to be my identity.
You.
Yeah, I didn't want it to define me. So I was super resistant to going to therapy, and it ended up being really good for me. Obviously, I'm very grateful that I had to go. I'm grateful that my parents supported that and facilitated it. And then I stopped probably in middle school at some point and didn't go back until junior year of college, and have pretty much been in ever since. I've switched therapists over the years, but
what brought you to the point of wanting to go back in your junior year of college, or needing to?
I was just so unhappy. I was just like so miserable in my life, and I couldn't figure out why. It's not like I had a bad life, and I'm definitely not somebody. I've always had like life is beautiful, life is a gift mentality, and even when I was in my darkest times, I had that, and I couldn't understand why I was so unhappy.
It's brain chemistry.
Yeah,
it's something you can't help. And I think that's what makes me really infuriated when I hear people say things like, even about celebrities, how they have all this money in the world, they have a jet, they get to go to this and that and how these nice things. That does not make it so that your brain chemistry is balanced.
Right.
That is a luxury that people are able to be given that they can't just afford and buy.
Yeah.
Well, and if anything, it makes your brain chemistry worse, right?
Absolutely.
Because you're getting all these different, different stimuli that are coming in, and that's not always the healthiest thing for you, right?
So that's generally the least healthy thing.
Yeah.
But I do want to acknowledge something. So you were saying how it's really important just to get help, like if you're having a problem. I also want to acknowledge how hard it is to get help, because if you are in the depths of depression and anxiety, just picking up the phone to make a call, to make that appointment, will be your hardest task that day. Yep. Getting in the car to drive to that appointment, showing up for yourself, that in itself is such a massive labor of love, and it's so beyond difficult. And like, I know so many people where I've had those heart-to-hearts, and they're like, I'm not doing well, I really need help. Mm-hmm. And I'll say, do you need me to make that call for you?
Yeah.
Because I understand the feeling of picking up the phone and being like, I'm not okay. When is your soonest appointment?
Yep.
And a lot of people can't do that for themselves, because depression can definitely blur your self-worth. Mm-hmm. It can blur your ambition, your drive to get help. And so if you notice that in a friend or a family member, ask them if they need you to make that call.
Absolutely.
Because that can save a life, or that can, in so many different ways. I don't mean save a life in the most drastic of senses, but it could also just be saving someone in the quality of their life and their, just how, I don't know.
And the trajectory that their life can go.
Yeah.
Like, my life would be so different if I hadn't taken care of myself in that sense. I just wouldn't be a functioning person, if I'm being honest. It would just not have been.
But you fought for yourself, and that's amazing.
Thank you.
You should be very, very proud of that.
I can't imagine doing it any other way. I don't ever want to feel that way again. So.
No. I've had a phobia since I was really little of depression. Mm-hmm. And it was always this weird thing where, I had lost people to suicide and depression at a very young age, and I wasn't able to really process it. And, you're given this information that someone that you love so much and made you laugh so much and you had this great connection with was capable of doing this. And then, like 8-year-old, you can't comprehend that. Yeah. And so it became this thing my whole life of like, if you just don't get sad or bad things just don't happen to you, then you're always safe and you're always going to be okay. And that was kind of like my basketball that I was holding under the water of like, no matter what had been done to me, whatever trauma had been, bestowed upon me, yeah. I would never be upset because I wasn't going to be defined by it. I was not going to cry or be stuck in my room over it, because then I'm one step closer to sadness and one step closer then to depression. And that hit me all of a sudden, like out of nowhere 2 years ago when my health went to shit, basically, because your body can only be in denial for so long. Mm-hmm. And so I'm slowly but surely learning to process and step one was definitely getting a therapist, but I believe in like multi-route therapy. So like what you did with ketamine and having a therapist, things like that. Mm-hmm. I went the SSRI route, and I got incredibly lucky that I don't need a very high dose, and I got lucky with the first type that I tried. But I just like want to make it so clear that like, if you're on medication, like fucking shout it from the rooftops. Yeah. Like I think that I've seen girls on Instagram recently post like the supplements they take that day. And it's like vitamin D, fish oil, Zoloft. And I'm like, fuck yeah, sister. Like I love that, because these women look so perfect on Instagram. And then to see that they're taking something to get them to that dream job, to that dream event, you need to be more loud and proud about it, because someone else is going to see that you're someone that they, you're someone that they look up to.
Yeah.
And then they're going to feel more comfortable making that call.
Absolutely.
Well, and at the same time too, I think what that goes into is, again, we have this idea of perfection, right? So you go on social media and you scroll it and you see all these different people and you look at them and you're like, that person's life is perfect, that person's life is perfect, that person's life is perfect. And so when you show that your life is not perfect, if you show that you do have things that bother you, or you talking about, again, like different forms of therapy that you've gone through and things like that, somebody else watches that and goes, okay, I'm not the only one going through this, right? Because I think there's so many people who the reason why they don't go and get help is because they're like, God, I just feel like I'm the awkward one. Like I'm the, the black swan of the family. I'm the, this, I'm the whatever. And it's like, at the end of the day, you're just human, right? Like we're all going through some level of shit. And when everybody's transparent about what they're going through, then everybody else feels more comfortable in voicing their truth and what they've gone through and what's currently bothering them. And that's when we get to a point where culture improves, where people feel like they can talk more openly about what they're going through, and that prevents things from getting worse, right? Mm-hmm. And that's one thing that Anna and I talk about all the time. I'm like, hey, if there's ever anything with the podcast that's stressing you out or whatever, let's talk about it. Let's figure out a solution. If there's other forms of work that are bothering you or anything else going on that's bothering you, let's talk about it so it doesn't get worse, right? Yep. And that's part of the reason why we're so close, is because I can call her up and we can talk about anything. If I've got something that's bothering me, she's willing to listen to it, and vice versa. And that makes it so that our problems stay smaller problems. They don't become these massive things, right? Yep. But I think we live in a culture with this idea of perfection, and then we wonder why there's like certain celebrities that go off the deep end and things like that, because again, the idea of perfection is an impossible task. You're never going to get there. It's not a true thing. It is the mirage in the desert. You're never going to get there. And so you might as well just get comfortable being you. But being comfortable being you is being transparent about who you are and what you're going through and what you've been through and everything like that. And so, and the more we do that, the more people can get help sooner. And so that these small problems that they have don't become the massive problems that explode later on.
And there's different avenues for that treatment. So like SSRIs are only effective for like 40% of people. Yeah. And so then there's obviously a huge discouragement with, something that works for a lot of people isn't working for me. And then ketamine treatment is, I don't know exactly, but the rates in which it is effective it's incredible.
Yeah,
it's massive. It's huge.
It's crazy. And the rate at which people have a bad experience is so
infrequent.
Low. Like when I've spoken to doctors, they're like, I don't think they say it's 100% good, but they're like, we can't say that. But they've never interacted with someone who's had like an adverse reaction to it, because they start you so low too that it's.
The amount is important, and then also being, it has to be in like not contained, but it has to be, I don't know, safe space.
Yeah,
controlled. Controlled. That's the word for it, because the situations that I have experienced or seen with ketamine going really wrong is when people have entered like a K-hole,
right?
When they're given way too much,
right.
And then that's when people can get addiction and harm and things like that. It's really, really scary.
That's what people often think is happening when I say like I do the ketamine treatment. Like, you just go in a K-hole? I'm like, no.
It's all about the dosage for anything in life, though.
Yeah.
But one thing I wanted to talk about, because after our phone call yesterday, I get really burnt out. And like Mark is the definition of just like social butterfly. Like I feel like it was that analogy I used where you get your coins.
Yeah.
Whenever you socially interact, and my coins are getting depleted. Yeah. And that's one thing with he and I is like, I want to come up here and maximize all of my time because I love all the people that I end up meeting through the podcast. And sometimes I'm just really burnt out. Like sometimes I'm really exhausted. And Mark, because he knows me well enough, was able to read that was happening. And I couldn't help but think afterwards that I feel like people are trained to change the things about them that might make them hard to read. So like people can't read minds. And so people that have a hard time asking for help have to learn to ask for help. And then I thought about it. I'm like, isn't that the biggest act of love, to be able to know what what somebody else needs and give them that so they don't have to do that for themselves? Yeah. Like yesterday, my boyfriend was like, can I grab you a glass of wine? I was like, yeah, but I'll do it. And I get up and he was like, sit your ass down. Like sit down and let me grab you a glass of wine, because I do not like people waiting on me. I do not like people accommodating me. Yeah. And the way in which Mark, by asking me what I needed, Forrest by yelling at me to sit down, that is them taking care of me because I'm not willing to do it.
Yeah.
Well, and it's the same thing earlier you mentioned about the whole, like, can I call for you, right, to somebody who needs to go to therapy or whatever. It's like, I think a lot of times we say to people, like, what can I do to help? Right. But I think sometimes when you ask somebody that, it's such a broad question that they don't really know what you can do to help. Yeah. So now I just offer suggestions. Hey, can I call this person for you? You know, I've had different times where, you know, people I've dated in the past or whatever, like they're at work, they have some situation that they need to deal with, but they can't deal with it because they're at work. And I'm like, okay, cool. I'll call. I've called a gynecologist, I think 3 times now. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, you know, it's like, whatever. Like, what's a big deal? I work from home. I'll call. And it's like, it takes me no big deal. It's, you know, they put me on hold for 20 minutes. I just get work done during that time. I then can get the question answered for you that you need answered. And now I just made your life a little bit easier. Right. Yeah. And so I think when we offer solutions instead of just, hey, is there anything I can do for you? Mm-hmm. I think that people's brains are programmed to go, no, there's nothing you can do for me. Don't worry about it, whatever. But when you offer a suggestion, hey, do you want to go for a walk? Hey, would it help if we went to go do a workout tonight? Would it help if I distracted you and we went and go do X, Y, and Z? Would it help if I cooked you dinner tonight? Would it help if I called that doctor's appointment for you? You know, whatever. You're offering solutions. I think there's a much higher likelihood that they're going to say yes to one of those things or be able to bounce off of you and go, actually, it would really help me if you did this. And I think it's like the way that we frame these questions, if we just alter it a little bit, I think we can be even more helpful to people. Because again, I just think there's a lot of times when you ask that question to people, like, what can I do to help? Almost every time they're like, no, you're fine. But then if you offer solutions, because they do need the help, it's hard for people to ask for help.
It's one more thing to think about, though. Like when you're burnt out and overwhelmed and someone's like, hey, let me help you. You're like, with what? Yeah. But when you offer the solution, you're taking something off of their plate and you're giving them one moment where they didn't have to make a decision. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Which is like yesterday, you're like, I'll make you a smoothie. Like you get burnt out because you're not eating enough. When you come up to LA, I'll make you a smoothie. I was like, I never would have thought of that. That's awesome.
Instead, we're drinking margaritas.
Instead of having a spicy margarita. Yeah. No, we split a salad.
Yeah, we did.
Healthy bitches.
Great salad. Yeah. So I guess my question for you would be, outside of doing the ketamine therapy, were there other things that you were implementing in your life to kind of help with your mental health during that kind of journey that you were going through?
I think at that point, it was reintroducing just general healthy habits and like doing things that I enjoyed again. Because for so long, I was so numb that I didn't really know what I enjoyed. And that's still something that even to this day, I'm like working on reminding myself is like actually identifying, like this brings me joy. I'm going to go do more of this rather than just, because I'm happy now. I'm not having anxiety. I'm not having depression anymore, but I'm still on that journey of like figuring out or remembering or relearning actual individual things that bring me joy and how to live my life kind of in pursuit of those things. So I like hadn't been working out very much just because at one point that was something I was doing 6 days a week and kind of obsessively. And when I hit my wall, that was one of the first things to go because I was so burnt out on it. Mm-hmm. And reintroducing that in a new way that was joyful again and not such a push or like a chore or something that I felt I had to do was a great place to start for me. And then honestly, just spending a lot of time with people that I love and really honing in on the people who felt like they built me up rather than depleted me. Cause I'm the same way. I need a certain amount of social interaction to feel fulfilled. Obviously, I love people. I'm fascinated by people and have so much love for everyone in my life, but I also need my alone time to recharge. And I think I got so stuck in a place where I was so depleted all the time, I didn't want and have the energy to interact. And so starting that again and really finding the people who filled my battery rather than drained it was also huge. And that's, I think, something everyone in their 20s goes through. Like we don't know who we are when we're 20 and 21, and you're not usually with the people that you maybe should, like friendship wise, even that you maybe should be by the time you're 25, 26, 30, 35, whatever. So that was an interesting transition as well.
I feel like when you have anxiety or depression, you're just so wanting to be at baseline that the concept of joy is just not even like attainable. It's not even a thing. And I feel like when I got mine under control too, all of a sudden I had this thought of like, wait, am I feeling enough happiness on this thing? Like, am I reaching the amount of joy? Like, is it normal to be really joyous right now? Like, I started being hyper vigilant about how much emotion I was feeling in every situation because it was weird enough that I was even there. So then I was like, wait, I'm going to get greedy and like be really happy, you know, not just like good and calm and content. I want to feel like over the moon joy. Yeah. And that's something I'm working on too, is like what actually even gives me that feeling, because before it was just searching for things that didn't give me an anxiety attack.
Exactly. It's literally that was my only, like when I would think about things that made me happy, it was just actually things that brought me relief. Yeah. And so once I am at a baseline where my day to day is not in the red, mentally, emotionally, whatever, all of a sudden it's like, now I have all this space to figure out what brings me joy. And that's kind of a scary place to be, because then it's like having the realization that you don't, like, people would ask me like, what do you like to do? And I'm like, be friends? I don't know.
I'm just trying to survive at this
point.
I'm
like, I that's a great question. And I was embarrassed about that, because it's like, how sad is that I couldn't answer that question at one point.
That's a lot of people relate to that. It's that's a luxury to a lot of people. It's like, because most people, their world is work, and they're taking care of their family, they're taking care of their bills and themselves, and it's like they don't you know, they're waking up crack of dawn, they get home at dark, you know, and then they're just trying to get food on the table, and then they repeat that cycle, and then by the weekend they're so burnt out that they can't even comprehend something that could possibly bring them joy. I think a lot of people's identity is just their job and paying their bills
and escaping.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people, just like what you were saying, once you get to the weekend, you just want to escape the week. And I think a lot of people end up just partying or zoning out on the TV. Yeah. Like rotting on the couch for 2 days or whatever it is. So
I think the older I get, the more I gravitate towards people who push me to do things that like I otherwise wouldn't do. Whether it's like if somebody says to me like, hey, let's go and let's just drive up this weekend to Big Sur and let's go enjoy there and see beautiful views and have some good food and you know, and just enjoy each other's company and whatnot. I'm down for that. If somebody's like, hey, let's go explore a new part of LA that we've never been to before, and let's just go to a random like dive bar and try out the food there or whatever. Like, it's like the little things that I wouldn't do otherwise. The people that push me to go and do those things are the type of people that I want to have around, because I think our friend groups change as time goes on. We have a lot of friends in college and whatnot who are like our party friends, and like they're a great time to go out with. We have a lot of fun with them, but we can't always get deep with all of them, right? And so I feel like the older I get, the more I gravitate towards people who I can get deep with, people who do push me outside my comfort zone, who you know, present new ideas. Hey, let's go do this. Let's go do that. You know, have you thought about going to do this? Have you thought about trying that workout class that you've always wanted to do? You know, whatever. I gravitate towards those people, because the party friends, again, like, I don't know. I don't think that's that difficult to have, like, people you enjoy getting drunk with. Like, I just don't think that's like, you know, wow, you're the greatest party friend I've ever had. You know, it's like, no, I want the person that like the next day when I'm hungover shit, I can be like, hey, by the way, I got a vent about this dumb shit I'm dealing with. Like, and those are the people that I care the most about. And so, you know, I think friend transitions happen too. And I think you start to really ask yourself, like, who brings out the best in me, who makes me the best version of myself, and who's going to continue to push me to evolve into where I'm going with life, and not just the person who's going to keep me where I'm at right now. Right.
Another piece of that, though, is that I don't think a lot of people somehow realize is you are the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And even just down to like, or the most tangible example is when I was working in sales, we worked closely with my coworkers, and we all picked up mannerisms from one of our coworkers who I still adore, but he had all these like specific sayings and ways that he would say things and different mannerisms, and everyone in the office started to say those things, and you don't even realize it. Like, you just pick up on the things that other people say, and the same goes on a deeper level. People's mentality you pick up on, people's lifestyles you pick up on, people's how they treat other people is a huge one too. So
their optimism, everything.
Yeah, how they look at themselves. Like, if you're around people who hate themselves, you're going to end up hating yourself.
I think that's why adult friendship is so hard. We were talking about that when you went upstairs. Like, I'm not cut out for it. Like, as things are transitioning, and it's so lonely, because even when you're in a room full of people that you really like, you feel alone unless there's one person that really knows you and like you feel safe confiding in, and you don't have to do the whole like, but don't tell them thing at the end of the speech. Like you're able to just know that that's a vault, you know? And I don't want friends that I just have fun with. I don't want to have categories of friends. And I know that everybody says you're going to have those, but I don't feel comfortable with that. I don't want to pick and choose what I can and cannot say to a few individuals. Like I want across the board. I want us to have fun. I want it to be honest. I want it to be loving and supportive across the board. All of them have to check those boxes. I can't just be like the girl that I, go to Pilates with and get drinks with after. Like, I don't want that friend. I want the all around checks all my boxes friend. And it's really hard to find those.
I don't have the energy for those friends, honestly. Like the ones that are kind of the in between. It's like, if I don't feel comfortable enough with you to be quote best friends with you, then I don't have the energy to like invest in that relationship, because I have other relationships that I'd rather be investing in who invest the same into me.
Absolutely.
Well, I think we end up tiptoeing around different people. And I'm like, when I have the people in my life that I need to tiptoe around, I'm never comfortable. I'm just thinking the entire time, well, can I say this? How are they going to react to that? If I do this, what are they going to say about that? I don't want people in my life like that. That's stressful as hell. Like life is already stressful enough. I don't want the environment around me to be stressful on top of that. And when you said earlier about how like the people around you, the 5 closest people to you become who you are essentially, right? Like, or you end up becoming, how did you word that again?
You become the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with.
There it is. So with that, I think a lot of times there's certain people in our lives, whether it's people we're dating, people we're friends with, whatever, where we're like, okay, well, they have this one thing and I can fix them. I can do this, I can do that, I can fix them, right? And I oftentimes think about that and I'm like, but in the process, are you sure that they won't change that about you, right? You think that you're going to help them. You think that you're going to get them to not have that toxic behavior or X, Y, and Z. But also, how do you not know that you're not going to end up developing some of their toxic behaviors as a result? Yep. So that's where I'm just like, at certain times, I'm like, man, I don't necessarily want to like fix the people around me. I want you to do the work. I want you to take care of yourself, continue to grow and develop and everything like that. I'm there to love and support you. But again, if you have these different like toxic behaviors and things like that, I can't be around that, because I don't want that to then brush off onto me. And now all of a sudden I've got toxic behaviors and I'm treating other people, with toxically as a result of that. So you just have to be so careful with the people that you surround yourself with and who you spend the most time with, because they're 100% going to have a drastic impact on you and what you do. So choose wisely on who you spend your time with.
You know what I hate to admit about social media is the thing that gets me the most are the girls that have the 15 bridesmaids. Like that is what I compare myself the most to, where I'm like, I can't even, the girls that have like massive girl trips all the time. And I'm thinking to myself, like, is there something wrong with me because I only have like 5 best friends? I don't have 15.
But how close can you really be with 15 people?
But then I think like it doesn't even, so that's the logical thing, is being like, okay, well, like not all of them are going to be best friends. They're just good friends. But my head,
there's
I
some
go,
shit talking
I go
in there.
Yeah, but I go comparative where I'm like, am I not a girl's girl? Like, am I a girl that people don't like because I don't have 15 bridesmaids?
I know.
I think about that, but I think at the end of the day, again, it's like, it's not about the quantity, it's about the quality, right? And that goes with everything. So if you've got a bunch of great friends, if you have 3 great friends, if you have 1 great friend, that's better than somebody who's got a bunch of friends, right?
That's
so like, true. At the end of the day, it's all about quality. It's not really about quantity. And I think that's the biggest thing that we have to keep in mind is like, again, there's no like correct way to go about any of this. And so I think oftentimes we just want to have these different things that we like knock ourselves for. And it's like at the end of the day, I don't know. There's no textbook on what is perfect. What is, what is this? What is that? It's like, if you're living your life and enjoying it, then there's nothing wrong with what you're doing. So just keep doing what you're doing.
Amen, sister.
Yeah.
Love it.
But,
that was amazing.
Yeah. I feel like we got to get you on again.
I know.
Love that too.
I have a new San Diego friend.
I know. Yay.
So excited.
100%. Now I'll just convince both of you guys to move up to LA.
Oh my God.
Mark,
you
it
just
should
gotta
be
come
the
down.
other way around. You would like it so much more than here.
I know, but right now we got to get the podcast going.
Yeah, but
Use it as motivation.
Okay.
You can record anywhere though.
Thank you. Thank you for saying the thing that I'm thinking.
Well, currently we record in my living room. So.
Yeah.
But I mean, like,
This is
have a
as
living room in
convenient.
San Diego.
Yeah.
This is as convenient as it gets for Mark.
It's a great living room, though.
It
Does the job.
We can get you an ocean view.
That would be nice, but I don't know.
One day at a time.
She doesn't have AC in her apartment in San Diego. That's a no-go.
We'll just get you one. Mark,
Yep.
you sweat in this environment too.
No, not in this. I keep this at 68 when we're
I know, you're
recording.
still
You
podcasts.
also can find a place with AC.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's not like it's banned in the San Diego County. Like
I just live in an old shitty apartment.
That's fair. That's fair.
We'll get you there.
Hey, listen, you own a construction company. You got to just make your own place.
That's so badass.
So true. I do need to just.
Do you wear a hard hat?
If I'm on job sites, I have to.
That's so cool.
But,
kinda
I mean, we
badass.
do construction management though, so we're not the ones actually building. We're just
Wait, but do you have a hard hat in your
developers.
car right now?
No,
You should do a photo shoot with it.
Oh, we should.
that'd be good. I can get one. I mean, I can bring one.
You should do a calendar and like raise money so you can get AC.
Till our coworkers started showing the photos.
God,
So all of us are
work
wearing
with-
bathing suits and hard hats.
Yeah, they're all.
that
wait,
calendar would sell.
And all proceeds go to me.
you too?
No, everyone at her company,
Oh, okay.
including
oh, wow.
her dad. He's going to be Mr. November.
the company is my dad, myself, his girlfriend, and two other
Yeah.
gentlemen who are construction managers. That calendar would be
Yeah.
You each get 2 months.
Big
It's
bucks.
perfect.
I mean, your dad would be down to see his girlfriend in the calendar.
Yeah. But his daughter.
yeah, his daughter.
Yeah, that would be tough. He's got to scroll past,
Okay, this is where we like wrap it.
This is,
Wait, I'm like, Dad, don't listen.
Yeah,
to
yeah.
this.
you're like, hey, listen, the podcast was great, but once you get about an hour and 4 in, just turn it off.
Just
turn
cut
it off.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Well, it's so nice to have you on. I can't wait to
So
hang
great
out.
to be here. Thank you guys.
yeah, thank you for coming
Look
on.
forward to coming again. Hopefully.
Absolutely.
There
You're
we
definitely
go.
invited.
There we go. Well, appreciate everybody tuning in, and we'll chat with you guys later.
Love you guys. Bye.
Bye.